Hi guys, I'm Len Shiro. This class is salary caps, and I'm going to try and do it by posting a couple of videos to bring us to where we need to be each week and give you guys some basic assignments so that we can get you credit for the class and give you a basic understanding of salary caps in professional sports. You don't have to know or follow professional sports to do well in this class. You really just have to pay attention to the details, and all of the details are listed in collective bargaining agreements. It's helpful if you have a background in labor studies. If not, I'll give you one very quickly. The class will basically consist of these lectures and a couple of other things that I'll post up, and you can follow and just do the homework. It will be probably 3 homework assignments, and we'll base the grade off of that. Let me start with understanding salary caps. There's 2 types of salary caps. There's a soft cap and a hard cap, right? And salary caps really just operate to set the maximum amount that teams in professional sports can spend. The understanding or the reason for it essentially lies in the owners claiming that that gives equality to all the teams irrespective of where they're from. And by way of example, if you use that as an example, you look at the tri-state area, the teams that are here have access to millions and millions of fans. Compare that, like the New York Knicks, to someone like Oklahoma, where the fan base isn't as much. Milwaukee can't compare to Los Angeles. And so those teams, those professional teams, will have less money to spend on players. If they have less money to spend on players, their teams aren't going to be competitive. If all of the teams are not competitive, the league will not succeed. It won't draw the type of national attention or international attention that it wants if it's not competitive. So the understanding is basically we will do this in order to create a much more competitive balance among all of the teams. Now, all of the professional sports league in the United States have some form of a salary cap. We're going to start today with baseball, right? And in order to understand baseball, you have to understand that salary caps as a whole are illegal, right? They're a violation of the antitrust laws in the United States. They basically take away competition, right? If you were to compare teams to another industry, all the lawyers in New Jersey can't get together and say the most we will spend on salary will be X amount and that's it, right? If they were to do that, that's a violation of antitrust. Each individual law firm, each individual employer is allowed to decide how much they want to pay. Each individual employee is allowed to ask for as much as they want. That competition and violations of that are called covered under the Sherman Antitrust Act. In baseball, they have what's known as, it's not really a salary cap, it is a luxury tax. What's the difference? Baseball doesn't set forth an amount that each team can necessarily spend. It recommends a certain amount for each team and then sets basically a tax, if you will, or a fine for teams that exceed those costs. The only vehicle for achieving all of this is through a collective bargaining agreement. A collective bargaining agreement is an agreement between a labor union and an employer, or in baseball and football and basketball and hockey, a group of employers, right? Because each team is the employer, but they're covered by a league. This collective bargaining agreement allows everybody to violate the antitrust laws. So you need a collective bargaining agreement to have any type of salary cap. Baseball has that. And baseball doesn't call theirs a salary cap, they call it a luxury tax. So, what is a luxury tax? In order to discern what the luxury tax is, you simply have to go to the collective bargaining agreement and see what that agreement says, right? If you go to mlbpa.com, that will tell you exactly what, or it will give you the collective bargaining agreement, and you can look up the exact terms. I'm just going to do it right now. That brings you to the union website, and from there you can get the collective bargaining agreement, right? Anyway, Article 23 of the collective bargaining agreement is what sets forth the base tax threshold. What is a base tax threshold? The base tax threshold is the amount of money each team can spend on salaries for the year. So for 2020, the amount is $208 million. If a team goes above $208 million, it has to pay fines, right? The fines are basically dependent on whether or not that team violates for the first time, the second time, the third time. The fines escalate over time. These fines are paid to the league, and then the league decides what to do with the money, and basically doles the money out to teams with less money, less revenue, so that they can spend more money on players, presumably, right? The amounts that are set are negotiated into the collective bargaining agreement each time a collective bargaining agreement is negotiated. This is very different from what the other leagues do, most notably basketball and baseball. Basketball and baseball are based on percentages, not fixed amounts, right? So the problem with doing it the way baseball does it is you cannot react to the economy, right? If you're doing strict percentages, whatever the league generates, you're going to get a percentage of that. So as the league increases revenue, like baseball has done every single year, I think last year, 2019, they made $10.7 billion. And the year before that, they had made more money than they did. Each year they're setting a record for how much money they're making. Instead of taking a percentage of that, baseball just has that set amount. So by doing that, it's a lot different than what the other leagues do. And I guess this year you can look at it as it being a plus. With everything going on right now, obviously Major League Baseball is going to be at a minimum delayed, right? We see that the National Basketball Association shut down completely. What they'll do, I don't know, but they're losing revenue. So the basketball players have a percentage of whatever the NBA makes as a whole. They get a percentage of that. That number that they're going to yield this year is going to be significantly lower than last year because of the pandemic going on, right? Whereas baseball has this fixed amount. So the fixed amount, even though it hasn't kept pace with the amount of increases that baseball has had, this year seems like a smarter deal because they'll have their money guaranteed irrespective of what baseball loses with the pandemic, right?